Chapter 3 notes, exponents continued. So we're at the bottom of the first page of notes for Chapter 3. And today we're talking about zero powers, which are things like 3 to the 0, x to the 0, 2xy to the 0. So anything to the 0 power. And the rule is really simple. Anything to the 0 power always equals 1. Okay? So 3 to the 0 would be 1. X to the 0 would be 1. 2xy to the 0 would be 1. The only time this doesn't work is when it's 0 to the 0. That's undefined. Okay? So 0 to the 0 power doesn't make sense. So number 1, 6 to the 0. Guess what? It's 1. X to the 0, guess what? It's 1. 27xy to the third to the 0 power is 1. Now this is really tricky. 1/2 to the 0 is 1. And negative 5x to the second, y to the third, z to the 10th, all of that to the 0 power is 1. Okay? If you want to know why, you could look at this, like 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 2 to the second is 4. 2 to the first is 2. Notice all of these are cutting in half. So 2 to the 0 is 1. And then 2 to the negative 1 is 1/2 because we keep cutting in half, etc. 2 to the negative 2 is 1/4. So to keep that pattern uniform, with any number as the base, anything to the 0 is always 1. Okay? Now, moving over to the right, negative powers. These are kind of interesting. Let's look at just a quick example. Let's do x to the third over x to the sixth. We know by our rules of division with exponents that we are supposed to subtract the exponents. So it'd be x to the 3 minus 6, which of course would be x to the negative third. X to the negative third. Now, if you look back at the x to the third over x to the sixth, x to the third means x times x times x, and x to the sixth means we have 6 x's. And if you remember, we can cancel, right? So our leftover x's are actually on the bottom of this fraction. Okay? So this statement and this statement are the same. Okay? So anytime I have a base to a negative exponent, I can take that exponent, make it positive, but I have to move it to the other side of the fraction. So in question number 1, x to the negative 2, that's really telling me that the leftover x's were on the bottom. So it's 1 over x squared. And 6x to the negative second. Now, the only thing to the negative power is the x itself, not the 6. If they wanted the 6 to be to the negative 2, they would have put parentheses around the 6 and the x. So it's just x to the negative 2. So the 6 is going to stay on top. And the x to the negative 2, I would move to the denominator and make it positive. In algebra, we'd like to write problems with positive exponents. So if we ever end up with a negative exponent in our answer, we need to make it positive by moving it either into the numerator or the denominator, depending on where it started. So for number 3, I have x to the second, y to the negative 7th. The x to the 7th or second stays in the numerator, but the y to the negative 7th, to make it positive, I would have to move it to the denominator. And that's all I can do because x and y have different bases. For 4, I have x to the 5th on top, and below that, y to the negative 8th. In algebra, we're not going to leave a negative exponent, so to make it positive, I would move it to the numerator. But don't forget to make that 8 a positive 8. So those two statements are equal to each other. We just prefer in algebra to have positive exponents. For 5, I have y, or x to the negative 4th, divided by y to the negative third. They both have negative exponents, so they're basically going to switch sides of the fraction. So I have y to the third on top, x to the fourth on the bottom. And then number 6, I have 1 over x to the negative third. We don't like negative exponents, so to make it positive, I have to move it to the numerator, or the top of the fraction, and make it positive. Okay, so just keep in mind that x to the negative 2 is exactly the same as 1 over x squared. But in algebra, we prefer to write terms with positive exponents. Okay, so that negative sign is really telling you to switch the position of that term on the fraction and make it positive. Feel free to refer to these notes as you do your homework assignment.